monitor or not. He might have had a monitor of some sort.
It was really spectacular, and I felt like it was such a moment. And also, from a Christian point, from a point of view of the season, to see the chorus singing in a barn, and thinking about a manger in a barn and the themes of homelessness that. Oh, all right, time over. I have a lot to say about Christmas. I love Christmas and Easter, by the way. I love Christianity. Okay, so what are we doing today?
So, speaking of Messiah, we're going to hear two more selections from Messiah. Again, both focused, both using one of the Psalms as the source material. Before I start, I wanted to mention two things. One is that it occurred to me yesterday, because after I finished talking, I just sort of glanced in a cursory way at the chat, and I saw there were a couple of questions, and I'm not looking at the chat when I'm speaking. So if you're putting stuff in the chat, please, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not looking at the chat when I'm talking. And if there's anything you're, dying to know, maybe Harold or someone can interrupt and let me know. The other thing I thought I would just mention a few things, because I think somebody asked about when I said that Handel's original scoring of Messiah was not for an oratorio Society of New York 200 voice choir and a big orchestra. It was much, much smaller. And somebody asked, what was the original orchestration? Basically, all it was there were two trumpets, a timpani, two oboes, two violins, one viola, and basso continuo, which would have been a harpsichord or an organ or something like that. So that was the extent of the instrumental force, which is quite small. I tried to find out how many singers were actually in the original chorus. I couldn't find a number, but I'm sure it couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 or something like that. So it was really, really quite small. Another fun fact about Messiah, and this has to do with the Hallelujah chorus, which everybody knows.
Ira, can I just interrupt and ask you something? And all orchestras were pretty small then, right? I mean, it was not, they didn't have the big orchestras of Beethoven's time. They were
right. The orchestras were small, but they were bigger than that. I mean, for a Mozart symphony or something like that, it would have been bigger than just two violins.
Just our modern or contemporary sense of what an orchestra is like, 110 instrumentalists, that's not really Handel's time.
No, not at all.
Ira, I will say that if you have just one or two violins versus 6 or 7, there's a qualitatively different sound that's created.
Oh, yes.
Which the modern ear wants to hear, but the Baroque ear did not necessarily expect.
Right, exactly. So, I think there are merits to both sides of this. I mean, some of the big force messiahs are absolutely, breathtaking. But I think, the period instrument, smaller size, is very intimate, and particularly when you see it or hear it performed in a beautiful church or something like that, it's a different kind of experience, basically. Anyway, so Harold, should we move on to you're muted, Harold, if you're talking.
I will share something very, very quickly. I emailed this to everybody. Ira provided me this. This is the entire score, the entire libretto text of Messiah, and it has the references from where every single verse comes from, which is fascinating. You all got this in your email. And now we will go to today's study. And so, Ira,
yes.
Here's what, hold on, let me take this down and put up something else. This should be today's texts, if you would
Okay.
walk us through them.
Yes, so if you can all rack your brains back to March or whenever we did Psalm 2, I don't remember exactly when that would have been, but probably early April. You will remember that we looked at Lama Ragshu Goyim, why did the nations rage, or however various translators translate it. We're going to play in today with the aria from part 2 of Messiah, where the bass singer is singing that line from Psalm 2, and then the chorus comes in with the "Let us break their bonds asunder." Then for the play out, well, I'll talk about the play out when we play out. So we can go to this now, Harold.
I'm sorry.
Beautiful. Ira, what church is that? Do we know where that is?
Oh, I don't know offhand. It might say it in the
Yeah.
on
But you're
the
right.
YouTube.
There's something to also to be in churches like that, which were really help to hold that sound in such a glorious way. Beautiful. Thank you.
So you could hear, but just with the words and the orchestra behind it, the furiously rage.
Yep.
You hear how Handel conceptualized that with the fast tremolos and the strings and the rapid scales of the bass solo. It really paints the words very beautifully.
And folks who were with us when we did study Psalm 2, remember we talked about how important Psalm 2 is in Christianity because of the phrase, the anointed one, and it's used a lot. I mean, I've never studied the actual words of Messiah to see, but it's interesting that that psalm gets used because it is used a lot in Christian hymnals of various kinds. That psalm is considered very important. Well, I mean, a lot of the psalms are, but the first one that we see where Christians and Jews read that psalm very, very differently, and it has a lot of power in the Christian faith tradition.
Rabbi, there's been some chatter about that. I'm going to post, there's a great note from the Annotated Jewish New Testament by Amy Jill Levine about the Isaiah passage, a child shall be born to either a virgin or young girl. I will not get into the particulars here, but I will post it right after class on the Facebook page, and it's well worth reading. Amy Jill Levine also has a new book about how Christians and Jews read the same words so differently, and how the as you said yesterday, the New Testament and the Hebrew Bible, while they may have many of the same words, have very different meanings for the two faiths. And I will post some information about that too.
And who is she? Where is she from?
Amy Jill Levine is a Jewish professor of New Testament at Vanderbilt University, and she and Mark Breitler did the Jewish Annotated New Testament, which I love because it takes it's the text of the New Testament, but with notes that place it into a context of late temple times and Jesus as a Jewish leader. I would recommend it to anyone who has an interest in this. The essays alone make up a fabulous book.
Great.
Margot mentioned, and there are lectures by her about this on the Stryker site, the Temple Emmanuel site.
Great. Thank you.
We will post all of this. Terrific. Where shall we go today, Rabbi?
And I'd like to suggest to folks, if you've never gone to a Christmas Mass, because maybe you're not comfortable going into a church or you've never known where to go, wow, is this a great opportunity this year to go to a Christmas Eve Mass, huh? Just zoom it all in.
Right.
And I'd recommend a few different churches. One are the Church of the Holy Apostle, where we used to meet. I used to go there for their midnight Mass. Their liturgy is really very traditional, which I love. I'm not sure they're Zooming. I assume they are. But the other one is the Middle Collegiate Church, whose pastor's a good friend of mine. And that's the church that just burned down on 2nd Avenue and whatever street that is, 10th Street, 9th Street, somewhere on the east side. That was a major, major, major center for AIDS in the 80s and 90s for those of us who lived through New York at that time, and continues to be a very, very, very progressive church. I used to go there for Mass also. They do carols that have removed Jesus as man. And they change the gender of Jesus because they don't want in some of the carols, they want to challenge people to not think about gender, even related to Jesus. So there's a lot of very interesting radical things going on in the Christian world, as there is in the Jewish world. And Jews tend to have a very right-wing perspective on Christianity. We know about the right-wing parts of Christianity. We know about the very right-wing Christian theology, the right-wing Christian politics. But within Christianity, there's a lot of progressive elements, feminist, queer, and middle collegiate churches, feminist and queer, and really pushing the edge. Lots of music. Their very famous music director died of AIDS, and that was a huge loss in the New York City world and the world in general. Anyway, they will be Zooming services. The middle collegiate is definitely high tech. So, and they no longer have a building. I mean, they weren't doing it from their building anyway. So I don't know I haven't gone the last couple of years, but Jackie Lewis, who's the pastor there, is a good friend of mine, and she and I are often on panels together. You know, when they want to really quirky Christian female clergy, or they want a quirky Jewish female clergy. She and I end up being the dog and pony show. Anyway, but she is fantastic, and their Christmas service, I'm sure, will be fantastic. I used to go. I haven't gone in a few years, but they're very famous for their chorus and for their music program, and for their very, 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 very progressive politics. Okay.
And Jackie posted on Facebook this morning that they had recorded their Christmas service before the fire. So they had it in the can. And I see Carol Diamond very nicely raised her hand in participants and is sitting here quietly. Carol, do you have a quick question before we get started?
Yes, first of all, I learned how to do that, to get on participants and raise my hand appropriately.
Excellent.
But I did want to mention David Stern's commentary, it's called the Jewish Commentary on the New Testament.
Yes, that I'm
which I have, and I have the notes. And I do that with my son. He said, Mom, if you want to have a conversation, not about my personal life, if you want to read the New Testament with me from this Jewish angle, I'm willing to do it. So we meet once a week on the phone and we discuss the New Testament.
Wow.
Great.
Yes, David Stern's a wonderful Jewish rabbi and scholar.
Right.
He's, I think, in Dallas or Houston, or he was in Dallas or Houston, one of those big Texas.
Yeah.
Carol, are you on the Facebook page? You can post that on the Facebook page to share with all.
Okay, I'm not on the page. I have to learn how to do that.
Or
But
you do that, or email me and I'll post it, okay?
okay, very good.
Thank you.
And there's one more thing, floating around is this Jewish contribution to COVID. If nobody saw it, I'll send it to you, Harold.
Okay, so we're gonna get started with the class, but if you can email to me, I will put it on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll email.
Okay, so let's go back to Psalm 14.
Hebrew English? We didn't quite get through the Hebrew English yet.
Yeah, we got through. I think we finished the first verse.
Yeah, okay.
They're different people have different personalities. Harold, I think, you're a completist, right? You like to complete things. Some of us, one of my daughters is a completist. She can't stand it if anything is not totally done. I'm much more of I can live in the process a lot longer.
The only thing I want to do, Rabbi, is keep you happy.
I feel the same way about you, Harold. So we're a good team. All right, let's look at so just a reminder, verse 1. Lamanatech la David Naval. Remember, it's a very quirky word. Somehow the foolish, maybe even as strong as villain, but I don't think it's that strong. I think it's more the unknowing or the sense. Somebody who doesn't have sense says, Ein Elohim, there is no God, or God does not care. Now notice how this translation is God does not care, even though the Hebrew is quite simple, Ein Elohim. And we'll see that a lot in different commentaries. What does Ein Elohim mean? And then there's a description. What do you mean God doesn't care, or there is no God? When I look around the world, what do I see? Hishchitu, destruction, hitivu. Probably this is a word that's somewhere from tohu vavohu, that phrase that we have in the very beginning, chaos, and there's some kind of word of destruction, chaos, alila, bad things. There's nothing good. So I think all of us can relate to this verse on some level, right? We look around, we see evil, we see corrupt, we see disgusting behaviors of people in power who seem to get rewarded for it. What ain't God? Where's God? What's happening? Where's justice? If we keep saying that when we talk about Yud He Vav He, the sense of God in the world, as Michael Goldstein loves to say, that it's goodness, and I like to say that it's about holiness. If we think of when we talk about God's presence in the world as an understanding that there's an expansiveness of holiness, an expansiveness of goodness, and things that are hostile to that are destructive to God itself, or herself, or himself, and that there's the tendency toward making us live B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, is living with a world of justice and of love and of light, and things that are draining holiness from the world are what the second half of this verse are. Corrupt, loathsome, nobody's doing good. So I think on some level we get this verse. This is a description. I forgot to say when I was describing the different kinds of psalms, that they're historical psalms. There are psalms of lament. There are psalms of exaltation or praise. And then there are psalms we call wisdom psalms, which are psalms which, as you can imagine, are part of a body of a body of literature of ancient Near East literature that's very common, called the wisdom literature. Which, think of Proverbs, something that tells you how to be a good person in the world, how to live in this world, what's right, what's wrong. And Psalm 1, for instance, that we read at the very beginning, is kind of a classical wisdom psalm. It's not about somebody's despair. It's not about exalting God exclusively. It's not about history. It's about who is a good person? How do I live a good life? I do good, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a little bit of a wisdom psalm, right? We'll see if it gets down to that. But this first sentence describes how I find this word very funny, benighted, but a foolish or a senseless or a not thinking person would say this. Why would this be a not thinking person to say? People are corrupt. The world is evil. There is cruelty happening all the time in the world. So let's look at verse 2, and then I'll take a couple of comments or questions. I just want to have a little contrast, or see a little continuity here. So the first verse, of course, we look which is the word of God being used. Here, this verse, the first verse, it's Elohim, which in the pantheon of God's words, it's a little lower than Yud He Vav He. Yud He Vav He is the big one. And now what starts verse 2, Yud He Vav He, the powerful name of God. Not power as in smiting people right and left, but powerful as in omnipresent, as in transcendent. Yud He Vav He, the one whose name we can't even say. Yud He Vav He, Mi Shamayim. Mi is the prefix for shortening of the word min, from Shamayim, heaven. The heavens. Shamayim is a plural, plural in Hebrew. Is it a plural in English? Heavens are.
The heaven.
What do we
The
say?
heavens.
The heavens.
It's more of a poetic register. You can say God lives in heaven, or you can say God lives in the heavens.
Right.
Either's correct.
So Hebrew, it is a plural word. God from heaven, Yud He Vav He, Mishamayim Hishkif. This is from the Shoresh Shin Kuf Fei, which is some form of to look. In Hebrew, the Hebrew word for eyeglasses is from the same Shoresh. So it's to look. Al Bnei Adam, to find a person of understanding. So the Yud He Vav He from heavens looks on to Bnei Adam, to humanity. Lirot Hayesh Maskil, to see. So in this first half of the verse, we have two words that relate to looking or gazing or something. Lirot, to see. What is the Yud He Vav He from heaven looking on in humanity to see? Hayesh, Hayesh. Are there maskil? Maskil is from the Shoresh Sin Kaf Lamed, which is the same word as we say in Yiddish. Americans know this as seichel. It also is a modern Hebrew word also. A maskil, and it means a maskil is an enlightened person or a person of understanding. And the Haskalah is in Jewish history the period of enlightenment, which is not exactly, that doesn't exactly align with the European Enlightenment, but it overlaps. So even the period of history is called the Haskalah, and a person who was a proponent or a follower of the Enlightenment period for European Jews is called a maskil. And a maskil, in Fiddler on the Roof, one of the sons-in-law that the daughter wants to marry is a maskil. That showed a certain type who was not religious, was an intellectual, followed science and reason, not dissimilar from the non-Jewish European Haskalah, but it had Enlightenment. But Jewish period of Enlightenment had its own body of literature, its own intellectual thought thinkers, thought people. So so this word is a very important word throughout Judaism, maskil. So seichel is and it's common sense. It's the right seichel. Does somebody have seichel? They have common sense. They don't have seichel, they could be super smart but not have common sense. I think that's how we would understand it in our Yiddishized use of the word. Now, remember we talk about biblical parallelism, that every time we look in the Psalm for the big pause to see how a verse is cut in two, most verses are cut in two, with each half relating in some way to the other. There are, of course, some that have three, but the rule is two. So with maskil, we end the first phrase. The Yud He Vav He looks down or looks down onto humanity to see, is there a maskil? Is there somebody of enlightenment? The opposite of a naval. So in this case, the sentence is actually reflecting back on the sentence before, the verse before, and it's contrasting a naval to a maskil. So we understand that's one of the ways that we even know what naval means. We do understand what maskil means. That word has a much clearer, because it's used a lot. So one of the ways we see there's a contrast here. That's why we don't like to translate naval as an evil person, because there's a clear distinction between somebody who's aware, who's enlightened, who's thoughtful, is contrasting with the naval. And what is the description of a maskil here to contrast with the naval from pasuk aleph, from the first verse? Kama doresh et Elohim. So now we're going back to the same word for God used in verse 1. So you see that? So Amar naval bilibo ein Elohim. So the senseless one, the thoughtless one, the one who is not discerning, says, there's no God. Look, there's evil all around me. But here we have Yud He Vav He, the one who lives the infinite God, without limits, looks down and says, is there a thoughtful person? Doresh et Elohim, who is looking for Elohim, or mindful, they're using here for God. Okay, let me stop. I know there are some questions and hands
Yes,
up.
there are. Karen Kropp, among others, is contrasting benighted and enlightened, both of which have the concept of light, where benighted is in the dark and
That's
enlightened is
interesting.
in the light.
Good point, Karen. Maybe that's why they're using it. I got it. See, I didn't even understand that word.
And we have first Ben Shafran, and Yael. So Ben and then Yael, I bet we're getting some notes on the Hebrew here. Ben.
I would say that the word naval is actually much stronger than benighted. It comes from the word nevelah, a corpse, something disgusting and stinking. That would make it a much, much stronger word.
Well, we looked at the BDB. There are a lot of different uses of naval in the Bible, which show kind of a range for it. But yes, it is. It's not that, but it is. But it is not. It doesn't have here the same degree of villain that I think it might have in modern Hebrew.
Thank you.
Yael.
So I wanted to comment on the word hitivu. Rabbi, you suggested it comes from tohu vavohu. I would like to respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I think hitivu is part of to'eva, which is abomination.
Good. I think you're right.
And if we
Accept
look
your
at
correction.
the vidui on Yom Kippur, the last three words are ti'avnu, which
Yep.
is this word, ta'inu titanu.
Excellent. I stand corrected. Thank you. You're absolutely right. Good
Wow.
catch there.
Judy, just Judy, who does not have her last name.
It's Hollander, it's me. I just need to say something about this first part of the Psalm that's been really like hitting me from the beginning, how much it reminds me of God's conversation with Abraham about saving Sodom. So these couple.
You mean looking for, are there any good people?
Yeah, that as soon as that just took me, the couple of lines there just remind that the thought, not the words, not the Hebrew, but the intent.
Yep, I agree. I see that. I see that, and that's really good. The more you do that, the better. That all of these things are echoing back and forth. So that's really good.
Lisa Brown.
So I've been doing my best to look up the grammar. Professor of mine at JTS always says that the true meaning of the text is in the grammar. So, you know, I'm just captivated by this word naval, which the BDB calls a substantive adjective, and it's juxtapositioned with the he feel. You know, so there's a difference.
Say that again, Lisa. Say that.
So this word naval, which is substantive adjective or juxtapositions with the he feel. So the difference is between saying that somebody is the one who drives the bus and somebody is a bus driver. So a naval is a bus driver. You know, naval has a function within in society in this corrupting manner. And all these other verbs in this first pasuk are he feel. You know, they're all he feel perfect, you know, so they're all sort of caused by this naval, this one way. I mean, I'm a little out on a limb here, but I was just curious about that.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's not that unusual for a noun to be in this form, and you use the word driver. Nahag is the same form.
Right, a bus driver.
Right.
So it's different than that particular one who drives the bus. So this, you know, to the point is that this naval is not a participle. He's not an individual. And there is a juxtaposition between this sense of corruption, which is embodied in this naval, who is anonymous. You know, it's not a particular person. It's somebody who's in there as this corrupting influence.
That's very interesting. Let's hold that and let's keep that in mind as we explore the psalm and get deeper and deeper and see how that holds up. I think it's a really good theory. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced yet, but I'm willing to hold on to it as we keep exploring it to see how it holds up. But thank you for that.
Dean Dresser brought up the question again of the various different categories and how many wisdom psalms are there? And is every psalm categorizable as wisdom or praise or?
You know, yes and no, of course. Some of them are very obvious and easy to categorize. Others have a little bit of a few different things. So those are gross simplifications as ways to understand. Some of them are super clear and there's no mix and match. Others have mixtures of them.
And
people will say, this sounds like a psalm, but that doesn't sound like a psalm. So I'm just saying that's not true. There are a lot of different ways a psalm sounds. And, you know, the 23rd psalm is one type of psalm. It's not the way many psalms don't sound like Psalm 23.
And there's another comment from either Ruth or Harriet about searching for that honest man in Noach and Yonah, that this is a theme that comes up over and over again. Can I find the one good man, or the finding the evil men versus the good men? And then Canternimi raised his hand. Hello, Canternimi.
Hello, I just wanted to make a quick point about the accent marks in the second verse. That
I count on you to make sure I'm doing this right, because Psalms are really different than other biblical Hebrew.
So when you have the trope that's on the word Adam, that has a higher degree of pause than et nachta. It only has an et nachta, and so the et nachta is the primary pause in the verse. But if you have Ole ve'yored, which is that looks like the map above and the mercha below, it has a higher degree of pause, and so it's grammatically this verse. That's where like the main pause is on
after Adam.
And the et nachta is splitting the second half of the verse. So it's functioning more like katon does other biblical texts.
So for those who are just following in English, what Canternimi is saying is that there should be, if I just use these words, even though just use the Lord looks down from heaven on mankind, comma, to find a man of understanding, semicolon, a man mindful of God. Would that be how you would do it, just to indicate?
Sure, or maybe even to have like the Lord looks down on mankind from heaven, like big dash or something like that, to find a man of understanding, a man mindful of mankind. Like there's it's hard to say exactly what punctuation.
You're saying it's a bigger pause after understanding, And there
Right.
should be but there should be some kind of pause after mankind. If we're just
Right.
this right now. Got it. Thank you. So the reason that Canternimi and I go back and forth on this and why I so rely on him is that the Trump marks are different, in although they look the same, they function somewhat differently than they do in Carol. Can you mute yourself?
Not me, it's someone,
Oh, it was Carol. I just muted
Yeah.
her. So the Trump marks or the tamim or the cantillation marks look the same but function differently, which they do in many books. They function differently, but the Psalms are. Would you say, Canternimi, these are the least known in terms of we don't know anything about what
Yeah,
the Psalms
it's
are?
in Psalms, Job, and Proverbs, Emet, Eov, Mishle, Tehillim, that they
Got it.
function differently from any of the other books
Yeah.
in the Hebrew Bible.
So this is refining the point of looking for, since there is no punctuation, we look to the tamim, the cantillation marks, to understand how the sentence would be divided up. And it helps us both understand emphasis and understand really understand the verse. It's very important. So thanks, Canternimi, a lot for that.
Sue Rosansky has her hand up.
Yes, I did. In the first line where Ein Elohim, where we're translating it either as God does not care or there is no God, it just strikes me that there's a world, to me, those are not the same things. There's a huge difference. It's a world of difference.
That is really
There is no God and God doesn't care. So I just
and we'll see how people translate that shows struggling with that, because clearly this JPS translator is seeing Ein Elohim as an expression not meaning there is no God, but rather somebody's despair that they're about this. Others will translate it quite differently. So watch for that, because I think you're absolutely right. Those are really different ways of understanding the meaning here. All right, so I'm going to now boogie through, because what I'd like to do is I have 10 minutes, right, Harold? Do I have 10 minutes?
I can give you, yes, you have 10
Give me
minutes.
10 minutes. I'm going to finish going through the whole psalm today so that we could start on Monday, because we don't have class tomorrow.
Correct.
We're going to start on Monday with the various translations and things like that, okay? So 3, Hakol sar yachdav, all, Hakol, all, turn, sar means to turn, yachdav, together. Bad. This is more description of what the world looks like to the speaker. No one who ein osetov. Again, that goes back to the ein osetov at the first verse. No one is doing good. Not ein gam echad. Not even one. Okay, verse 4. So it's more of a description of looking around the world, listening to who Trump is pardoning. The world looks pretty bad, right? Okay, verse 4. Let's see the English, because I'm going to go through can you scroll?
Can you see it? Let me pull it back up again. Hold on. Let me put up a different version. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
So 4. Halo yadu kol po'alei aven, ochle ami ochla lechem, yud he vav he lo kara'u. I'm just reading from my text.
Sure.
Do they not know? Kol po'alei aven, all the workers of iniquity. Okay, let's see how they translate. I just want to keep this. 4. Halo yadu, do they not know? Are they so witless? Halo yadu, don't they know? Call all these evildoers or all these workers of iniquity. Poel is a verb or a worker. This is so powerful, isn't this? Ochle ami, those who devour my people. Ochlu lechem, in the way that they would devour food. Lechem is bread. Yud he vav he lo karu, and they don't they call out to God? 5. Sham pachadu fachad. Sham, there, big pause. Pachadu fachad. The same word for pachadu is fear. This is the verb. Pachad. So you see the same shorash, and those they will be seized with fright. Ki Elohim, Yud He Vav He, is not mentioned here, but Elohim Bidor Tzadik, in the circle or in the generation of righteousness. Now, who's the they? Here, the they in this verse is referring back to this whole list of evil people, of corrupt people, etc. 6. Atzat ani tavishu. You may set, atzat is advice, like eitzatova. Atzat is advice or counsel. You may set at naught the counsel of the lowly, but Yud He Vav He is their refuge. So we're going to come back to this a lot. So this is the lowly here. Ani literally means poor. So in other words, you may tavishu is like the Hebrew word for busha, I think, for shame. So you may shame the advice or the counsel of poor people, but you should know, be careful. In other words, Yud He Vav He, now we're using Yud He Vav He, is his, who's his? The poor person's refuge. 7. Mi iten mitzion. Oh, who coming out of Zion, we're going to leave what Zion is right now. Yeshuat, Yisrael. Again, the word Yeshua translated by Christians as Savior, meaning Jesus. For us, it's a redemption that is not at all necessarily Jesus. From Zion comes this Redeemer of Israel, Beshuv Yud He Vav He, in the return of Yud He Vav He, Shvut Amo Yagel. This is interesting. When the Yagel Yaakov Yismach Yisrael, when the Lord restores the fortunes of his people, God, Jacob will exult, Israel will rejoice. We're going to have to pick 7 apart a lot more to understand, but so this Shvut Amo is captivity of his people. So when Yud He Vav He restores, this translation is fortunes of his people. It literally means captivity. A lot of people therefore think that this is an example of a psalm that's written either during the Babylonian exile or after the exile itself, which is hundreds of years after David. This is an example of a psalm that people say is referring to the exile, which happened a couple of hundred years after David. So it was not, this is one of the examples. So mi iten mitzion Yeshuat Yisrael. Oh, that the deliverance or the redemption of Israel will come from Zion. Yud He Vav He will bring back the exiles or the captive, or the release the captive people. And Yagel Yaakov, Jacob will rejoice. Yismach Yisrael, Israel will be happy. Yaakov and Yisrael, of course, are 2 names for the same person, and we'll look at that as well as we continue through it. All right, so that's the overview of Psalm 14. I don't think we even have time for any comments or questions. Do we, Harold?
You know, we don't today, but if I could talk about a little about the schedule for next week and the week after. So next week, we will be returning to Psalm 14, the Hebrew English, and the translations. We will be doing it for the 3 days we are together next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We will then be turning to offerings on Monday, the 4th, which means that the deadline will be Sunday, the 3rd at the usual 5 p.m. I'm going to ask my writers to stay after the playout, if you're available for just a couple of minutes, to talk about some issues of formatting and deadlines and submissions that have come up over the past couple of Psalms so that we're all on the same page. I will be sending out this schedule in an email. And Ira has something to play, has some beautiful Handel to play us out with. I would just suggest, Lisa, I know you've been going in chat about Naval. It's a complicated grammatical thing. If you wanted to write something down that made your point very clear to those of us who may not be Hebrew grammarians, I would be happy to share it with the class, or I will put it on the Facebook page. You seem to have a really strong point to make. And Doc Randy asked again about the different types of Psalms and how many there are. Randy, perhaps you would like to look into that for us and see what you come up with. I think that we have some things in the preface of the altar. There's certainly things online, the divisions of Psalm, and we might be able to give you a little guest lectureship to talk about the divisions of Psalms and how many there are, so that we're not answering for you, you're finding out for yourself and answering for us, if you would accept that challenge. How does that sound, Rabbi?
Yeah,
Step?
there isn't one list. Different people do it in different ways, but sure. And I'd be happy to give Randy some things to read. But starting with Robert Alter's introduction is a good place, and Sarna's introduction to his book on Psalms, or even probably Wikipedia has something. But
Yes.
I'm asking
it's
you
not
to donate
absolutely
right now to help both
crystal.
North and the Senate. Reverend Raphael Warnock,
I remember one time
I need our help more than ever
Hold
before.
on. Sorry. I was pulling up.
There are many Psalms which are absolutely clear and there's no question, and then there are a lot of Psalms which are a little bit of many different things.
All right, so we now have everybody's favorite heartthrob countertenor. Ira, would you just like to introduce our playout?
Yes, I will, and I will not say too much given the time, but this is an aria for alto, here sung by a countertenor named Jacob Orlinski, who's Polish, and so this is performed with the Warsaw Symphony Orchestra. Jacob Orlinski is one of the primary countertenors of today. He's also drop dead gorgeous and has done modeling. And as Harold pointed out to me, I did not know this, he is a champion break dancer. So this is, the aria is from Psalm 68, verse 18 in the King James, or verse 19 in Sepharia. Thou art gone up on high, thou hast led captivity captive, and received gifts for men, yea, even from thine enemies, that the Lord God might dwell among them.
Oh, my heart be still.
I know,
Oh,
fabulous.
and Judy Hollander reminds us again that at noon, CBST's Middle East and Me has a program. If you go to cbst.org, calendar, all of the information is there. And Rabbi, I see we have a new calendar format on the website.
You're going to see a lot of changes. Hopefully, we're going to be
We're
improving
making
things.
tracks here.
We're making some
Making
headway.
tracks. All right, so I am willing to stay. I would like to stay for a few minutes with anyone who is one of the writers of an offering to answer questions. Rabbi, thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. This is a very, very early Shabbat Shalom. We do have our regular Shabbat services, even though Friday is Christmas and Saturday is our traditional Boxing Day service, I suppose. All right, so Lori Spear has her hand up. Lori, do you have a question?
Way back when they were talking about they gobble up my people as they gobble up bread.
All right, so what we're going to do is, that's a question for the rabbi for next week.
Okay.
If that's okay. All right, so this is about offerings, all right? So that there's no question about the schedule. If you look at your calendars, the deadline is not this Sunday. The deadline is a week from Sunday. That is Sunday, the 3rd of January. The deadline is at 5 p.m. and that is a drop dead deadline, okay? You can send something in earlier than that if you want. You cannot send in anything later than that, and you need to send in just one version. You can decide if you sent in a version and then you change it that you do not want to read that one version in public. You cannot send in a second version for us to replace for the first version. It's just gotten a little out of hand. What we are planning to do is 2 days of offerings, which will be Monday and Tuesday, to not do a play in and a play out, to do it for 55 minutes and to have the rabbi do the somewhat limited response that we did last time around. So everybody who has something in by deadline will have the opportunity to share it in public. We will only be doing it for 2 days. And you will get to hear the rabbi. So we wanted to balance the people, many of whom were not offerings writers, who said that the balance was getting a little off when we were having 4 days. But chat was very much, we want to hear everybody. We just we don't want to spend a whole week on it. So that is the deadline. Now, it goes to one email address and one email address alone. It is Annika's Psalm Offerings at gmail.com. Please do not also send it to her private email address. Please do not send it to me. All that happens when you try to cover your bases by sending it to 3 places is that you create confusion because we check our emails at different time and we're checking in with one another. Did you get this? Did you get this? Which one should we have? So that is deadline, how we're going to be presenting it, and where it goes. In terms of presenting it, it is always best if you have a printout in front of you so that if I'm not turning the page fast enough or anything happens with your screen or my screen, you have it in front of you. If you are expecting, excuse me, Michael Goldstein, we see you taking your shirt off, Michael. If you are expecting someone else to read your offering, please let them know beforehand and give them their text so that we're not surprising poor Sherry Dratfield, asking her to do a beautiful dramatic reading of your offering cold. Sherry is very careful and she likes to prepare. Now, some technical notes about formatting. Both Annika and I use Microsoft Word, which is saved as a .doc. Some of you are using Pages. Pages is the word processing system which is installed in a Mac. What happens is if you send us something in Pages and we translate it into Word, we lose some of your careful formatting. That is why sometimes we lose the spaces or sometimes we gain the spaces. There is a very easy thing to do. If you're finished with editing your document in Pages, it's just you go to export to doc. I can show it on screen in a minute if you need me to, or you can do it. please do not send us, you can do it in Pages, but please export it into Word to send it to us. It makes it so much easier for us. And we are using Calibri as our typeface and 12 point so that it looks the same. I know that some of you have done special formatting, which is wonderful. But if you do something special in your formatting and you want to make absolutely sure that once it's translated into our document, we have that formatting, if you can save your document as a PDF, which means that we get a picture of exactly the way you want it to appear, you can send that along with the doc. So we'll make sure I really want to respect your hard work and your formatting. I feel badly when you send it one way, and when we open it, it looks differently, and I put it on the screen differently. So please feel free to send a PDF along with the doc if you want to. A few other things. The only time you should use a space bar is between words. Do not use a space bar as an indent tool. Please use tab if you're going to be indenting, because if you use the space bar, it translates very poorly, and we've spent hours taking out space, 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 space for someone who decided to use that to center a line. And the other problem is, hold on, do not press return at the end of a line unless you want the line returned there. If you have a block of copy, please let the computer return the lines for you, because if we change any formatting or the size of the typeface, it throws everything off. So those are some of the things that I've seen in terms of formatting. You can all unmute yourself. I think we only have, and ask questions if you have any specific questions for me and Annika about submissions and formatting. Lisa, I see your hand has been up for a while.
So I'm probably going to submit some music at some point, and I actually don't want to post the music. I'd rather just play the music from my end. I can, of course, submit the text of the music, but what do you think about that?
I'm sorry, so you would like, do that again, Lisa? So I'm sorry.
I have recordings. I've made recordings of my songs.
Okay.
I don't want to send them out into the world yet, but I'm happy to play them for you. But I'd like to play them from my end, even though I can send you I can submit the text by 5 p.m. on Sunday as it.
Okay, so Lisa,
yeah.
I will say that every time we've tried to have someone else screen share, there's been some delay or issue. I am happy to keep it under wraps. If you want to send me a file, I will not share it. I will not play it for anyone else. And when we come to you, I will play it off of my screen. Does that sound okay to you?
Yes, that's fine. My second question is that Word really formats Hebrew very poorly. And I've written a lot of, because I write out the text in Hebrew, and Word is not good with Hebrew.
So Lisa, for you, since I love you so much, send me a PDF of exactly what you want on the screen, and that is what I'll put on the screen. How's
okay,
that?
Great.
Okay.
Also, for the filing system, excuse me, Harold, please, whatever you're sending to Harold, do send to me so I can keep it in the queue and know how many people we have.
Okay, yes.
That's the only instance.
Lisa can send it to me. Everyone else is still sending to Annika. I see Lori Krotman's hand up.
Yes, if some of us are doing artwork, which I'm venturing into, what format, how do we, is it JPEG or PDF?
JPEG is fine. JPEG is fine. And we will put it into the document, okay? Thanks for asking that. Good question. Ruth or Harriet has her hand up.
I wanted to ask, I asked in the chat, and I don't really know enough about this. I have Word 365. When I save my document, it gets saved as a docx document.
Right.
Can I save it as I don't know whether I can save it as a doc. And I have sent you PDFs, and somehow
okay. So
docx is the same thing.
docx is fine. And if we're losing formatting, send a PDF along with it to that one email address to SOM offerings, and Annika will I will make sure that it's formatted the way you want. And also, if I'm putting the doc up, if you see it, if it goes on the screen and it's not quite right, I'm happy to take a minute and add the spacing or do some quick corrections. I want it to look right. You spend a lot of time. Formatting is important to everybody. Let's see, Sherry.
Yeah, I had a question about your statement that we shouldn't use the return at the end of a line.
Not a, you can use it at the end of a, if you mean to have a return, no matter how it's formatted, use the return.
Okay.
There are several people who have had narrative and they've done a line return just because they felt that they came to the end of the page.
Okay.
So there's a big difference. If it's an intentional end of a line that remains, you do return. If it's not, if it's just that you feel somehow you're seeing the cursor get to the end of the page, let the computer do the return for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Darina.
I always use Word and my paragraph spacing got lost the last time anyway. So when there is something that I could do about it, I was very careful for only press the enter key and not some combination that would.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question, Darina.
It didn't help that I use Word. My paragraph spacing got lost anyway.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. There's a question about PDFs. You need to send us something in Word so that we can put it into, what we do is we take your text and we put it into one big document that we then manipulate. But if you feel that we're losing if you want us to have a picture of exactly how you want the formatting to look, also send us a PDF. The PDF will enable us to see your exact formatting, because no matter what you do, when you translate from one document to another, you sometimes lose some of the subtleties of the formatting. Is that clear? So everybody needs to send a doc, but if you feel that there's a question about the formatting, you can also send a PDF along with your doc. Stephen Deem.
Yes, well, can you repeat the font size and the style?
It's Calibri and it's 12.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for asking. Who else? Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I don't actually have Calibri as an option. Can I send in Times New Roman?
You can send in Times New Roman and we'll put it into Calibri as long as it's a doc, it's something in doc, okay?
Great.
All right, I see a hand again. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, one more question. If I do want to ask Sherry to read my psalm, how can I go about doing that, Sherry?
I happen to have Sherry right here.
Oh, you happen to have Sherry right.
Yeah, I'll just give you all my email, and I'll put it in chat right now. Just email it to me, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Ruth, I respect that request. I would also ask you to consider that your own voice, how valuable your own voice is. You've been honest with us about some stuttering issues. We have as much time and as much patience as is needed to listen to you read your own work if you decide to do that. It is your choice, but we love to hear people's work in their own voices. So just
I would
think on that.
second that. I would second that.
Okay.
But it is your choice. Okay, Linda, I see your hand up. Wait, someone's typing and I can hear it. Please stop typing or mute yourself.
I was going to agree with Sherry and you that Ruth, your voice is your voice. And as you express your offering, nobody can do that, what you do.
So anyone else have a question about deadlines, formatting, etc.? All right, thank you. The offerings are a very, very valuable part of our class. What I'm trying to do is to help you to be efficient, to help me and Annika to receive and respect and present your offerings the way you want them presented. So you have over a week now for the muse to sit on your shoulder. And we look forward to hearing what you have to submit to us.
And can I say thank you so much to Harold and to Annika for undertaking this. It is a huge undertaking, and many extra credits for that. But
No.
thank you.
All right. Thank you
And
so
happy
much.
Chinese food to everybody.
Yes, and Lisa Brown, I will be sending you Yael's email. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Randy, you have your homework. Doc Randy, you have your homework set out. We expect it. We expect brilliance. All right. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Everybody.
Harold.
Thank you, Harold.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you.